And you know, one of the dumbest things, Sheila, is that social justice warriors say they care about the poor, but they want us to switch from our inexpensive coal-fired electricity to super expensive wind and solar power. Here in Ontario, we got rid of all of our coal-fired power starting in 2002. We had about a quarter of our power from coal, and it was very inexpensive. But Dalton McGuinty decided we were going to lead the world on climate change. The fact that we only put out 0.5% of world emissions in Ontario didn't seem to cross their mind as not being very significant. But regardless, they completely got rid of our coal. And that's one of the major reasons why electricity prices at the peak time of day have gone up more than 200%. Okay, now who does that hurt? That hurts the poor, you know, and the disadvantaged. So why on earth would social justice warriors push the climate scare? The solutions in that and in other areas hurt the poor more than anyone.
Well, the same thing was happening here under the NDP, and we'll see if Jason Kenney reverses those changes. There are indications that he will, but in practice, who knows? But I mean, Alberta really is the Saudi Arabia of coal in some respects, and we do have the technology to burn it cleanly. It's some of the cleanest burning coal on the planet, and yet it was under the NDP that we made this move to shut down our coal-fired generation plants and then caused utter chaos in our electricity system. You and I were talking off air that while, you know, Doug Ford in Ontario and Jason Kenney here in Alberta have made some indications publicly that they are opposed to Justin Trudeau's carbon tax, they've kept some parts of it in place, have they not?
Yes, in fact, Premier Ford in Ontario has a virtual carbon copy of Trudeau's industrial carbon tax plan. So here he was campaigning against it, and he's retaining a big chunk of it. And I understand that in Alberta, Jason Kenney has kept the carbon tax on large emitters as well. So, I mean, the problem is people campaign on one side of an issue. They get into power, and the deep state, you know, the people who are behind the scenes running the show, basically make it so awkward and uncomfortable for them. They go along with whatever they're being. And you know, that's really unfortunate because Canada has the potential to be a world leader in so many ways. But if we're going to cripple ourselves in ways that are not crippling countries like China, you know, we're going to really lose out. People have to understand that if we close our coal stations, if we cut down on our emissions, do they think China's going to do it? Well, no way. Even under the Paris Agreement, if they followed it, they can increase emissions all the way to 2030. Now, after that, people say, yes, that's when China will actually limit emissions. Well, guess what? There's an escape clause. In the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change that was part of, you know, was signed at the Rio Summit in 1992, it says, and they will not change it, the first and overriding priority of developing country parties, which China, by the way, is still considered, is poverty alleviation and development. So what's going to happen is come 2030, people are going to say, China, okay, now you have to cap your emissions. And they'll say, nope, we do not, because our first priority is poverty alleviation and development. And the cheapest form of power is coal. You think we're going to turn that off? No way. So they're going to continue to grow emissions. They're already twice as big as the United States in emissions. And we're just going to be suckers because we'll have sacrificed, even if you believe the climate scare, even if you think that we cause dangerous climate change, if the biggest emitters are not limiting, then what we do isn't going to have any impact.
That's an excerpt from my weekly show, The Gun Show. It airs every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Each week, I bring you an informal interview with an interesting newsmaker or citizen activist you might not have heard of, but who is making a big difference in Canadian politics. And we'll talk about issues in a way you'll never see done in the mainstream media. To subscribe, go to therebel.media/shows.